Hey everyone, welcome to the Copy Blogger podcast. My name is Tim Stoddart. Thank you so much for joining me. My co-host, Ethan Brooks. Hello, Ethan. Great to talk to you. Hope you had a great week.
What's going on, man? Happy Saturday this time around. We're recording a day later than normal.
We are. We were both traveling, probably crossed paths somewhere between, well, I guess it's the I-75 we both would have taken somewhere. You went from Austin up to Connecticut's New England, right? You guys consider yourselves New Englanders, yeah. And I am back in Nashville after my glorious month in Miami, doing nothing but drinking Cuban coffee and eating chicken empanadas and just freaking sitting on the beach. All right, I wanted to start off this episode with a thank you. Just as we hit record, we got a really kind word from John Reagan. I think that's how you say his last name. You can follow him on Twitter at John Reagan, R-A-G-O-N. He's a member of the Copy Blogger Academy. And in regards to our last episode, Ethan, you said this was such a clutch episode. You guys brought great points on when and how referral programs actually help. Good tools and nothing without clear strategy. So I think that is a compliment mostly to you, Ethan, because you were breaking down Louis' program, and congratulations on doing a great job. And John, thank you so much for the kind words. That shit really means a lot to us. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John.
All right, I'm gonna kick this one off, man. Let's just dive right into it, because last week there was something that I was excited to talk about, but I just got too amped up about that outlier algorithm that you and I spoke about. But this week, I also wanted to talk about this Twitter thread that Ethan put together. So how Convertkit went from 1,500 MMR to 100k MMR in 12 months. And you know what? I didn't pull up the actual thread, but I will find it now. And the moral of the story for his thread is all about direct sales. And I thought this was such a cool thing for Nathan to talk about, because so many people who are starting companies think content marketing and Instagram and let me just get as much attention as possible to what I'm working on and my product. And you know me, I'm a sales guy. There is still just so much value into sitting down at your computer, networking with people, sending cold or warm emails, finding a way to make relationships, and just telling people about your product. So I guess I should show this to you as well, Ethan, so you can take a look at it. But it's an amazing Twitter thread by Nathan Barry, who's the founder of Convertkit. And I'll read a couple points here. I started Convertkit with the goal of 5K in monthly revenue within 6 months. Initial traction came quickly, but then stalled out at 2K a month and gradually declined to 1.5K. So this first tweet blew my mind, because if anybody knows Convertkit, I think they're doing like 30 million a year right now. Nathan owns like 98% of the company, like hardly any venture. I think actually Convertkit put like $1 million, or excuse me, I think HubSpot, the CEO of HubSpot, I can't remember his name right now, but I think he put $1 million into Convertkit last year. And that's really nothing in comparison. Like, they have very low funding, very, very bootstrapped, an amazing product. And Nathan's just like a great founder. And so the fact that he's saying that like he was struggling to hit 1.5K a month in sales just totally humbled me a little bit, like reminded me not to have that hero worship, right? Everybody has to start somewhere. But then I discovered the key: direct sales. Here are 10 steps I followed to build an effective direct sales process. I'm not going to read all of them. I'll go through it briefly. Step 1, choose a niche. You and I both really agree on this. Step 2, create a list. This is very important, because with direct sales, I think one of the problems people make is they just start emailing people. And the way to do it is actually to breathe, take a step back, research people, find out about them, find out how you can provide value to them, like what they're into, what some of their hobbies are, so that you can make like a warm connection and not come across as just another one of those terrible spam emails that we all get all the time. Number 3, ask about frustrations. I don't know where number 4 is.
Can I pause you for just a second? So step 2 there was create a list, as in these are like a list of people that you're going to reach out and talk to and just try to raise capital. VC said the market was too narrow, but I actually niched down further. He's talking about how to niche down, and he got very specific.
Yep.
And then he found a bunch of people who represented the types of people who might buy his software. That's the list that he's talking about. And then he went and followed them all. These are all like public facing people. So it's not private citizens. These are people who are building blogs and stuff in a particular space. That was who he was targeting. And so he went and he created this list that way. And then the ask about frustrations is reaching out to those people that he was following.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the check. I should probably slow down on this a little bit. So his actual tweet was, when I tried to raise capital, all the VCs said our market was far too narrow, but I actually niched down further. I'd go to email marketing for professional paleo recipe bloggers who are women, or men's fashion bloggers in NYC. I got very specific. This allowed me to use Twitter, Google, and quote top blogs and X category posts to compile a list of who to contact. Subscribe, and this is the real important part. Subscribe to their newsletters, follow them on Twitter, and interacted with their content. So when I reached out, they'd recognize me. So again, he didn't just start emailing people. He didn't just try to get quote unquote coffee meetings with important people. He took the time to build relationships with folks that he think might be a good fit for his product, for Convertkit. And so
I think it's easy for a lot of people to jump the gun. And I mean, I've done this, you've done this, everyone's done this. You assume you have to go for volume when you're doing outreach because you assume it's going to have a really low response rate. But, you know, I come from a community building background. I've built professional communities in a couple of different industries, everywhere from, you know, like 5 to 10,000 plus users. And even in those pools where you have like 5, 10,000 people, there are a handful who are really engaged with what you're doing, and everybody on the team can name them. So if you go to like the, you know, my team at Trends right now and ask anybody that's involved in that product, who are the most involved people in our community, there's a really good chance that at least 2 or 3 of the names that come out of that are going to be the same, no matter who you ask. And so it doesn't take much to get to the top of the radar, like across a company, if you're willing to just put that time in and engage inside their community in a way that's like helpful and organic. I think a lot of people miss that.
Totally agree. That's so true, isn't it? I can do the same thing within the academy. There's, I think we have 1,200 members now, and there's probably like 40 or 50 that drive a majority of the engagement. So I think, again, to Nathan's point, the interaction always exists within, I mean, I hate the word influencers, but let's just use that word, right? There's a majority of people who have all like the social clout within communities, or a minority of people, excuse me. And so if you can just navigate your way and build relationships with those people, it's going to be very, very effective for you, for sure. And yeah, thanks for slowing me down. I think this is actually worth going through in detail. Step 3, ask about frustrations. I'd then email them directly. Rather than asking for them to buy or demo my product, I'd ask about what was frustrating them about MailChimp, Aweber, or whatever they were using. The email was short, personal, and name dropped the most relevant customers. So here's just an example of an email. Sarah, is anything frustrating you with MailChimp? The reason I ask is I run ConvertKit, which is the email marketing platform for professional bloggers. We got a lot of great bloggers using us, like Katie and Seth from Wellness Mama, Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, and Chris Skillabo. I'd love to hear more about how we can build it better to serve bloggers like you. Talk soon. The responses poured in. These bloggers were frustrated with not being able to segment their list, which, by the way, is the best part about ConvertKit. Create opt-ins to give away a free guide or incentive, creating automated email courses, and more. The exact things I was frustrated with that got me to start ConvertKit. So he's doing like one-on-one product research. He's like finding his product market fit directly through interaction with people.
Yeah. And I want to take a second to just talk about how something like this might be applied to somebody who's trying to build like a content-based business.
Yeah.
Right. Because in his case, he's building software, but I actually think this process carries over. So if you were to just follow what we've laid out so far, what Nathan's laid out so far, you would be really clear about your niche and pick something that's super specific. Like, what do you want to write topics on? Last week, you talked about how you've basically been like the country's leading expert in SEO strategy for content related to addiction recovery programs and stuff like that, right? That's fairly specific. Be specific about your niche, then identify who are the types of people that you should reach out, or who are the types of people, who are the people you could reach out to. And I think what's unique about what Nathan did that might carry over to the writing world is he was looking for people who are not just building in his space, but were building in his space and had some verified use of like a competing product, right? So they're using MailChimp or something like that. So he's not just picking random people, he's picking people who are using a tool that is similar to ConvertKit that he can convert them on. And so what would that be for writers? I think it would be something like, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like copy.ai, which is, they might have changed their name at this point, but it's like these automated writing services that are just cranking out copy. Maybe it's working, maybe it's not. I don't know. Is there anything else that comes to mind for you? Like if you were doing this for a content-based business, where would you look for the kind of the mirror images of your like potential clients?
Totally. I would look a lot at digital products that aren't SaaS related. Nathan, it's important because we talk about this journey a lot. And Nathan, like all of the best entrepreneurs I know, started off as a freelancer and then built a company out of a specific skill. And I think the majority of writers are at that like third stage where they know how to write well, they know how to build an email list, and they're probably creating like digital products to sell to their audience. And I think that there's so many ways to format and present info products, especially, which, you know, we don't need to get into this, but the way the education system is going right now, and like, it's so clear to me that digital certifications and educational products are just going to be like multi-billion dollar businesses. And so, yeah, there's just a ton of room to build a business by selling your knowledge, basically, like Naval Ravikant says, like sell your specific knowledge. So to me, when I think of content marketing, obviously content marketing applies to a lot of different industries. It applies to everything. But for the most part, the people that are interested in what we do with Copyblogger and with Trends and the Hustle is they're looking to create an audience so that they can sell like a piece of themselves, basically, so that they can productize a thing that they know into a course or an ebook or a package or a membership or something along those lines. And so what I would do is research how other people have packaged products, especially educational products and courses, well. And maybe this is speaking very personally because I find it very, very difficult to figure out how to present a curriculum for whatever this madness is that's packed inside my brain. And I find that to be like a real challenge. It's like, I know what I know. How do I package this in a way so that the curriculum is like easily absorbed? My sister, who's a personal trainer, she's building some really badass info products. I know that she struggles with this. It's a hard thing. And some people are kind of really good at it. You know, they just get like, this is exactly the order to present this information. But coming full circle, I think that for quote unquote content marketers and people building personal brands and people building email lists and audiences, the biggest stopping block to monetize that is creating really high level info products that present well. And so that would be like my competitive advantage that I would be researching for. I figured out like, how did this person what did you like about this course? Like what was it about this information that was presented so well? Like why does trends have such a high retention rate compared to other memberships where people usually stay for like a month or two and then leave? Like those are the kind of things that I would want to learn as I'm asking about frustrations.
Interesting. Okay, so I had stopped you there. That brings us all the way up to like 3/4. And
Yeah, well,
then
I
number
think he
five
skipped
is
number 4. So anybody watching the video, number 3 was asking about frustrations. And so number 5, there's no 4 unless he deleted it. So number 5 is get on a call. That led naturally to a conversation about how I'd solved some of their same issues. I'd offer a call to A, give them some suggestions to improve things in their current tool, and B, show them what I'd built with ConvertKit. I did hundreds of Skype calls. Man, I love this. I love this so much. It's too automated, the internet, and like this cool, like the sexiness of building a leveraged business, right? Leverage is badass. And I'm an automation guy. Like I love it. I love the autoresponders and I love the emails, but there is just nothing. We're people. Like we are emotional beings. We're not logical beings. Like we are emotion first, always. And so the value of just doing a Skype call, listening to somebody, trying to solve their problems, even if it doesn't lead to a direct sale, like that reputation building and that relationship building, not for the sake of like being directly transactional, but just for the sake of putting good vibes out there. I don't even know how else to say it. Just creating a like a better world around you. It is so effective. And I really wish more people did it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people do this kind of process in order to get new ideas off the ground and also build their network in a new space. Like this exact same footprint so far could be used. Yes, it can be very effective for direct selling software. This can also be a really good way of transitioning into a new field. So if anyone's like stepping away from a job into whatever your side hustle is, and you want to kind of develop that professional network, literally steps 1 through 5 are a perfect way of doing that as well.
Totally. Yeah, completely agree. All right. So number 6, remove the biggest objection. This was probably my favorite part because, again, just as a salesperson, people's biggest hurdle is just going in for the close. So many people spend so much time like talking and adding value and talking about their products and services. And then when it comes down to it, they're like scared to just ask for money and ask for the close. And I get it. It's very, very nerve wracking, but it's like anything else. Once you do it a couple of times, you realize it's not as scary as you think it is. So number 6, remove the biggest objection. Most early sales conversations ended with saying, quote, ConvertKit sounds great and I love what you're about, but switching providers is so much work. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Ouch, just when I thought the conversation was going so well. I tried to explain my way through it. It's not that hard and you just have to blah, 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 but nothing worked. On one call out of desperation, I said, I'll do it for you for free. That worked. They said, okay, let's do it. What followed became our concierge migrations program. There's a book, what is it called? We were just talking about Ramit Sethi before we started recording, and he has this guy that was very influential to him. Damn, I cannot remember what the book is called. I'll put it in the show notes. And he has a philosophy about sales where it's just about risk, because the risk is always on the person purchasing. And so if as the seller, you can remove all of the risk and take the risk away from them, then there's no reason for them not to convert because there's nothing in it to lose. And so I love this. I love finding the risk and taking the burden of risk to make it like a no-brainer for them to transition.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think we've talked about this in a past episode, but like one of the really important parts of that is making sure that you're finding the real objection. So when you say finding the risk, it's like, what is the thing that's actually stopping them? Because very often what you're going to hear at this stage of the process is something like, well, something like this, maybe, oh, it's too complicated, or more likely it'll be like, I got to talk to my team, or this just isn't like a priority for us right now, something like that. And if that's the truth, that's just fine. You have to deal with that. But a lot of times people are going to give you kind of a smokescreen objection in order to avoid hurting your feelings and get them out of the conversation easily and stuff like that. And so if you can find the real one and remove it, but I mean, if you can find the real one and remove it, that's great. But you got to know that you're working with the real objection there.
Yeah, you're like a Tim Ferriss guy, right? What's he say? Ask why 3 times. You know, like if there's a problem, then you say why, and then they give you an answer, and then you say why, and you give an answer, and then you say why again. Like you always actually figure out what the root of any problem or mental block or like fear of a decision is.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's that concept of like, I think it's either 3 whys or 5 whys or something like that. But for anybody thinking about that from a sales perspective, you're going to have to find a way to camouflage those whys a little bit. If someone's just like, no, I don't want to buy this, and you're like, why? Yeah, maybe that would work. Who knows? Maybe there's somebody out there making that work. But that's a real good way to get yourself beat up on in-person sales calls.
I love that, man. I love that. Could you imagine? I'll have to like just record a phone call or something of doing that. It's like, why? See like what happens.
I feel like it would probably have like a 50% success rate.
Yeah, maybe, because someone would just be so shocked. It's like so this is such a random example, but we caught some guy like a year and a half ago trying to break into my car. I walked out front and there was just some dude in my car. And the first thing he did is he said, do you know where the closest McDonald's is? And I just completely froze. And I said like, no. And then by the time I answered, he got away. So it might be one of those things where people are like, and then they just like give you the answer.
That's hilarious. That's perfect too. I'm going to keep that in my arsenal for next time I break into a car.
It totally got me.
Speaking of Tim Ferriss, there was an episode where he was talking to somebody. I think it might have been Derek Sivers, and they were talking about this mentalist, and I forget what the frame of the conversation was, but a story came up where this guy, what's the word I'm looking for? We're so kind of driven and oriented by what we perceive around us that when you throw somebody's perception of the situation off even just a little bit, you can really throw them for a loop. Like the story you just told, this guy, he was mugged one time, and like I think it was at gunpoint or knife point, and instead of freaking out, he just started talking. He's like, somebody said like, give me your wall, and he goes, yeah, my uncle had a wall, like little wall this high, just like that. And the guy's like, yeah, little wall, lots of ducks, right and left. And whoever he was interviewing, I think it was Derek Sivers, told it perfectly. So for people who are interested, it was a great interview. Go back and listen to it. But the idea was that if you can change context, like that hard left turn, you can even de-escalate like these violent situations where people they don't even know what to do anymore because they're so set in their pattern that when you break it, it's like, I don't even know what to do.
Wow. Sivers is like a really great storyteller too. I can imagine that being super, super entertaining. Okay, so we're on to number 7. Do anything to get the customer. I'd get login credentials to their site, email provider, and any plugins. Then I'd manually move everything over: forms, email sequences, templates, etc. It was tedious and time consuming, especially for only a $50 a month customer. I remember watching Netflix on one monitor while copying, pasting, and formatting long email sequences to the other. My hourly rate was less than $5 an hour for those early customers, far from the $150 an hour I'd been charging for design services, but it was working to get momentum. I love this. I really do. I mean, you and I both have like similar opinions on hustle culture, right? Like quote hashtag hustle, team no sleep is super toxic and super ineffective. But I also think that there is just such an opportunity for everybody who's just willing to work a little bit harder, because most people don't work that hard. Like they really don't. Most people just don't want to get up a little bit earlier and stay up a little bit later. And it doesn't take 120 hours a week. It takes just sacrificing going out for drinks with your friends on the weekends. It takes not watching like The Voice every night and copying and pasting for like an hour and a half, And so I really, really love this for two reasons. One, because Nathan's a hard worker. He did what he had to do to get the job done. But also this last line, but it was working to get momentum, because I really, really do think in business, there's such a thing as momentum. Like once the ball starts rolling down the hill, you can just ride that wave.
Yeah, I was thinking about the whole hustle culture thing the other day. And I think my opinions on this are fluid. Obviously, I work for a company called The Hustle. So we hear both sides of the equation quite frequently. And I do agree, like, beyond a certain point, it's not productive to continue working hard. But I also think that, like, to some degree, that was the mindset that got me a lot of the things that I'm really grateful for today. And so I think where I currently stand on it is, like, for anybody listening to this, I would say, don't ever let anybody shame you for your work ethic. Like, it's become very trendy to hate on people who work hard, or, like, to kind of rail back against the hustle culture. Fine, let people do that. But, if you're like on a mission and this type of work makes sense to you, like, never, ever, ever let anybody say that you're doing something wrong by hustling. But, like, realize there's trade-off. And at a certain point, you might be saying no to something that you wish you have said yes to down the line. But this is the thing that nobody talks about. I have yet to find a single person in this game who doesn't hustle and is successful. Like, and I hate that. I actually don't love that term for describing it. But, like, even the happiest, most fulfilled, best, most balanced people that they work really hard. They just find a way to kind of incorporate it all into their day-to-day. I haven't met a single person who, just kind of logs in, checks the bank account, makes sure it's still growing, and then, like, logs back out for the day. It's probably happening somewhere, but I haven't seen it. So for anybody out there who's like struggling with this or grinding or whatever, just keep it up. Like, that's kind of how you get there. You just keep trying shit until finally something works, and then you adjust along the way. But don't feel bad because you're working hard in the meantime. I think that's what he's getting at here.
No question at all. And this could be like a whole nother podcast episode. In fact, I'd really love to talk about this, to find like the balance of hard work and that point of inefficiency, where like your brain breaks down. And there's a real scientific reason not to work that much, because the biggest caloric intake machine in your body is your brain, right? So like you just burn more calories thinking by far than anything else. So from like a physiological standpoint, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But like you said, I don't know a single person that I look up to, or with anything really, from a business standpoint, from like a family standpoint, the men and women that I look up to in terms of like, wow, they really have something that like I want to strive for. Like I did a lot of thinking about the Protestant work ethic, because my family's basically immigrants. I'm the first full generation. My father was the first person to be born in America from both sides of my family. And my grandfather was Catholic and my grandmother was Protestant from my dad's side. And so that's why they moved to America, because they're from Scotland and they weren't allowed to like have a relationship with each other. And through that, I learned a lot about this I guess it's history, a philosophical concept that made America what it was. And it's the Protestant work ethic, basically, because the pilgrims that came here, the reason why they were persecuted was because Protestantism believes that the path to salvation is through your work, where Catholicism believes that the path to salvation is like to get to the end of the life and then like repent on whatever you got, where the Protestants think like, no, like my work, my day-to-day living is basically the way to live, like, quote, your best life, right? And so it is that philosophy that made America the country that really was just willing to do like a little bit extra more. And so there's like a huge argument to say that one of the reasons why this country has been so successful is straight up because we outworked everybody. And till this day, I've yet to see a really great replacement for just outworking people. So, we're getting like a little bit deep onto this concept. However, Nathan built probably a $30 million company right now. Like, he'll probably be a self-made billionaire. And I think the whole entire thing started from copying and pasting people's email sequences so that they got an opportunity to log into Convertkit and see that they liked it better than MailChimp or Aweber and some of the competitors. So like, we spent a lot of time on here, but this number 7, like, do anything to get the customer, right? Like, do anything. And it just can't be overstated. So I know I'm preaching a little bit, but man, I just believe in this so much.
Yeah, well, one of the other reasons that I think this is an important step that might not be sinking in with what Nathan wrote is that, I mean, you don't have to do this forever, right?
Exactly.
This is what you do early on, and the insights that you glean from this lead to really important value props down the road. And then he said it himself, like, this became, their concierge migration program.
Yeah.
So eventually, he's hiring for this, they're creating systems, and they're finding a way to make it economically viable. And it's a really important part of the business, and it's scalable down the line. It would be weird if he went out of his way today to get like some 2-bit blogger onto Copyblogger, like literally volunteered to copy all his data over. He's not going to do that today. And you won't do it forever either. But early on, these high touch, manual labor, like highly intensive interactions, you'll learn a lot about your customer from them. I would be willing to bet anything that by doing those, he probably was able to refine the copy or the just the product, because you see like exactly, you see what data people need to put into it, and like, how much time that takes and what the hardest parts are. You see that in a way that's more useful than if you're just talking to clients and hoping that they're going to get all the way through the product funnel on their own. So yeah, this is a really important step, but you don't do it forever. And that's also important to know.
Totally. Excellent. All right, moving on. Number 8, create an echo chamber. I noticed that every customer we landed made getting the next one a tiny bit easier. Well, this is just exactly what you were just talking about. More feedback, references, and names to drop in future emails. Once a fitness blogger said, I feel like everyone on the internet is switching to ConvertKit. Since we had less than 5K in MMR, that couldn't possibly be true, but it seemed true for her. I targeted everyone in her niche. In her mastermind group, 2 had already switched and the other 3 were thinking about it. Big fish, small pond. That's how we built momentum. I love this, man. I just want to pass it over to you because this is kind of a continuation of what you were talking about.
This reminds me of how Tim Ferriss markets books, because one thing that he said publicly is that, like, you don't try to be everywhere for everyone, but you should try to be everywhere for a very specific type of person at a very specific time.
Yeah.
And so when he sets up marketing campaigns, they'll often take a user profile, like, some guy like you or me. He'll figure out, okay, well, what are all the blogs that these guys read? What are the newsletters that they read? What are the podcasts that they're on, etc. It's not going to be that many, right? If you really know who your audience is, because I don't know, how many blogs do you have time to read in a day?
Sure.
I don't have that much time. And so if you hit like the top 1 or 2 blogs, top 1 or 2 podcasts, top 1 or 2 newsletters, all of a sudden it seems like this person is everywhere. And really what it is what Nathan said, just really knows that target audience and is able to create the illusion of being anywhere. So I love this.
Number 9, ask for referrals. Oh, this gets me so amped up. So many people are just scared to ask. Like, don't be scared to ask. You're here to grow a business. Like, you're here to get money in your bank account. Ask for referrals. Once a customer was set up and successful, I'd ask who else I should talk to. They'd always have at least 1 or 2 other bloggers to suggest. Those warm intros worked far better than cold outreach. Of course they did. It's like a pass off. Like, you have authority being passed off by the person referring you. Soon referrals were driving as many calls as cold emails. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Do you guys do this at either Stodzy or Copyblogger? Actually, I'm more interested in Stodzy since it's like service based.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a perfect time to mention this because the last masterclass that I just did in Wednesday, it was about like closing deals. Because in Copyblogger Academy, there's one of two people who are freelance writers that want to get clients and people who are like bloggers that want to sell digital products, and so there's ways that we can serve both of them, especially because the freelance writers, like we talk about on this journey, like eventually build a brand and figure out how to productize that knowledge. And yeah, I give the entire playbook, man. I do not hold back. Like to me, there's no secrets. It's all about execution. And so I talk about my strategic partnership network. There was a blog by David Sachs, one of the besties on the All In podcast, and he's also one of the founders of PayPal. And he wrote a blog about how to create a sales program and like the specific numbers of it. And so I'll keep it all divisible by 10 because doing math live is like a terrible idea. But he says he says that the commission should be 10% of their quota and their salary should be 10% of their quota. So like if they're expected to hit $100,000 in sales every year, then their salary should be $10,000 and then their commission should be basically 10%, which if they hit their quota turns into another $10,000. So in total, 20% of the sales quota is what you're paying for the sales rep. And so I read that and I was thinking to myself, like, okay, finally, like I know how to price out building a sales team. But then for some reason, it just occurred to me that like I'm not selling a PayPal, I'm selling a service. And service businesses, especially in what we talk about with niches, are very like everybody knows each other. Like everybody goes to the same conferences. And so I just figured, why don't I take professionals in the industry and treat them like sales reps? And then I don't have to pay for their salary. And so we created a whole entire strategic partnership program where we just give 10% referral fee to any deal that was passed off, even if it's an email. Like even if all you did was just make an introduction and I did all the work and I closed it and I made that sale, like I am privileged to, and we automated it with the accountants and stuff like that too. So the money part is really easy. It just gets ACH into their bank accounts. So yes, like absolutely. Referrals are a huge part of how we generate sales, especially because it snowballs, right? Like the website and the content marketing and the high level email marketing stuff we do is great for new business. Like that's how you build awareness. But then you turn that awareness into trust, and then you turn that trust into reputation, basically. And your reputation turns into your referral program because it's good for everybody. Like the strategic partner gets a little bit of like free money in their bank account. And we're super honest about it. Like I'm not trying to hide the fact that we are incentivizing people. But then it's great for the client because the client has already seen proof that like we know what we're doing. And they get great results by working for us. And obviously it's great for me because we get to build our company and I don't have to pay for a sales rep. So like, yeah, referrals are huge. All of that to say that referrals are a really, really big part of like how I've generated our sales machine.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
What about at Trends though? Do you guys have a referral program?
That's a good question.
I mean, at the
think
hustle, you guys do, right?
I don't actually know the specifics of this. I'm but a lowly writer, which means
Yeah,
I don't.
right. That place
I
would
don't.
fall apart without you, Ethan. You're the glue. You're the linchpin.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I'm the glue writer. I think after we were acquired, there was something that happened because we're publicly traded that affected how that worked.
Sure.
But I don't. I don't know. I don't know right now. I should probably figure that out. I think what we have is like we have a referral program on the hustle, and it gives out prizes.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. And the reason we may have had to end the one on Trends is because it was straight cash referral.
Sure.
And I think that might get into some tricky legal area there. For newsletters, I think, and we talked about this in our last episode, referral programs are like important, but I don't know how much business they really drive for like a paid a paid newsletter. It'd be really interesting to see that. I've never seen those numbers for trends. And I'm not sure if I've seen, actually, I haven't seen them for others. I haven't seen the actual numbers, but I did talk to this guy. He runs the Van Trump Report, Kevin Van Trump, which is basically a paid newsletter all about agriculture industry. It goes out to farmers and like commodities traders and stuff like that. And what's really interesting about his is that the open rate on that newsletter is often above 100%. It's like 120%, 130%.
Because
Yeah,
people
because
refer it out.
yeah, so many people share it with friends and stuff like that. So if you have like a newsletter like that, and it's just a couple $100 a year, it can be a really good way of growing as well. So for more on that, I guess check out our last episode because we did a whole deep dive on referral programs. But that's cool to hear that you guys use them so heavily over at Stodsy.
Cool. All right. And the last one, number 10, be human. I was always personal and human. If someone didn't reply, I never said, you're harder to reach than the Pope. Or did you get crushed by an elephant? I don't know why that's so funny to me. That's the only reason you wouldn't reply. Everyone is sick of that nonsense. Instead, I'd say, I'll follow up once more in 2 weeks. And if I don't hear from you, I'll assume it's not a good fit, good move. Because sales isn't about convincing people to do something they don't want to do. It's about aligning incentives. But I'd still follow their content and gradually interact. People would often come back a few months later and then hit a pain point or the timing was better. The results. I started at 1.5K in December of 2015. By July 2016, I think he means, it says by July 2015, but July 2016, 6 months after starting direct sales, I completely turned around Convertkit's growth and hit 15K MMR, one customer at a time. What happened was the craziest period of my career. Not only was each sale getting easier because we had social proof, but referrals were starting to come in. Influential bloggers like Pat Flynn and Wellness Mama switched. I'm breezing through it a little bit now. We rolled out an affiliate program to compensate these early promoters. This is really clutch too. ConvertKit has done really well with their affiliate program. By the end of the year, we hit 98K MMR. The momentum was incredibly unscalable work that turned into very scalable growth. This is exactly what you talked about before with manually like switching people over. It's unscalable. It's getting paid less than $5 an hour. And that momentum turned it into very scalable growth. Paul Graham famously said, do things that don't scale to get over the cold problems and start new products and kickstart word of mouth growth. Do things that don't scale because that enables the channels that do scale. Today, ConvertKit is the #1 email marketing platform in the world for bloggers, 29 million a year. And it all started with a lot of cold emails and unscalable hustle. I loved this. I really did. When I read it, I really, really enjoyed it. It speaks to me as a hustler. It speaks to me as somebody that appreciates people like having a vision and just getting after it. And also, I just think that for the people that listen to our podcast, it's really, really tangible and easy to follow advice that we can all use.
Yeah, this was great, man. Thanks for bringing this up. I thought we covered some interesting ground here. I guess I'd be curious to hear what other people think of this. How this strikes them, what like follow-up questions they have. So for anybody listening, I guess hit us up on Twitter, tell us what you think, and let us know how you're implementing something like this, you know?
For sure. I totally agree. I want to see how these scenarios from other people are landing, because one of the things about advice is that it's so specific to the person. Like there's really no such thing as like generic business advice, right? Because every business is different and everybody has like different idiosyncratic problems that are only to them. And so that's why I think what we're doing, like I try to be as specific as possible and give like real detail oriented advice that gives like tactics and strategies and not just some high level esoteric thinking. So I agree. Let us know how this is landing with you. If it's helping you, have you implemented any of this stuff? I'd be really thrilled to hear it. All right, man. Is there anything else that you want to say?
No, I think that's it. So quick recap on this is like basically be super clear about your niche, figure out who specifically you can carry over to like your service or your product. Recognize that probably won't scale early on, but that's fine. Yeah, offer to do things like reach out to them, engage with them, make sure you're a known part of their community, because that's going to give you an in. We didn't mention this, but that also probably makes the referral game a lot easier.
Yep.
When you haven't just done like a service for them, but they also know your name for a while and they've known it for like a little while. Reach out, figure out what their pain points are, and then do whatever it takes to get them over.
Well, thanks for everybody for listening. If you would like, please leave us a comment on iTunes. Please subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It's the best thing you can do to support the show. Tell your friends and let us know what you think. Thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.